Belief being negative, more than that. Vision. Vision. I was in Boca Raton in Florida, and we went down to Fort Lauderdale. Now in Boca Raton, we went out for dinner, and we ran into this guy who we'd never met him before, but we met up with him. He was a nice bloke. We started chatting, and we were just having dinner together, and my wife drinks champagne, and another friend of ours who live in Boca Raton was there with us. So come towards the end of the night, and this bloke had been ordering this champagne for the girls all night. Cristal champagne. $400 a bottle. This bloke had spent about $4,000 on champagne that night. And this was about probably 8 years ago, before I was rich. And I'm sitting there looking at this thinking, now that's a different level of vision to my level. We went to Fort Lauderdale. Anyone ever been to Fort Lauderdale? Have you seen the boats? The average house has got a 150-footer out the back. If you've got a 70-footer, you're a poor fella. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And I'm walking down this street, and my wife says to me, "You don't seem happy." I said, "Yeah, I don't have one of them yet." See, the bigger the vision. See, let's say you're a kid who lives in the Bronx, and you don't know any better than that. Are you dissatisfied with your life? No, you're satisfied because you don't know any better. It's like some of you come to this seminar purely for the fact that I can sit here and tell you stories about wealth, and you sit there and go, well, now I've improved my vision, so I have something more to aim for. You know, what is the next level? Some of you got your dissatisfaction by listening to other people around the room this morning. Dissatisfaction takes a belief that there's something else out there. Takes that level of belief. But one of the reasons that I like my business, the business coaching business, is what do our coaches provide for you every week as a business owner? High level of dissatisfaction if you don't do stuff. Because if you don't do it, are they going to kick your butt? Yep. Why are they going to kick your butt? Because you paid them to. So dissatisfaction comes first, but then we have to have vision. Is part of vision a belief in the vision being possible, yes or no? Yes or no? Yeah, because those kids in the Bronx, do they still watch television and they can see other places in the world on the television, can't they? But they have no belief that it's possible for them in most cases. Now, some of them get a belief that it's possible, and you've all heard stories where people have come from way down to way up because they believed it was possible. So for those that aren't changing very much in this room, my question to you is how are we going to raise your dissatisfaction with where you're at? And how are we going to raise your vision of where you need to go? One of the fastest ways in business that I've found to raise people's dissatisfaction is on the first of the month, they have to write a check into one of their own investment accounts. Anyone in the room do this? On the first of the month, you write a check from your business to your own investment account. In fact, the best way to do it is set it up on a direct debit. And that investment account is an account that you cannot get access to. So let's say you take out 10 grand a month and put it into your investment account. You've then got no money left to pay the bills. Is there going to be a level of dissatisfaction going on right now? Absolutely. How much harder are you going to work to pay the bills back to that creditor who rings you every day? Now, you're going to work harder to pay them back. And this is where you've got to stretch yourself at some point. You've got to start stretching yourself. The first steps, well, in most cases, most of us know the first steps of what we need to do to make change. Others of us, this week, will we pick up a lot more of those? Yes. But all that's got to be greater than your resistance. How many of you know you've put up some resistance to change at some stage in your life? How many of you know you've done that? Excellent. So where does resistance come from? Let's take a look at that. Because without understanding this, folks, all of the rest of the stuff I teach you won't make a dime of difference. If you don't understand how to change long term, There's no difference in anything else I teach you. I call it the identity iceberg. And what we see on the identity iceberg is that we have a set of behaviours. That set of behaviours, we see it through actions and decisions, but it's a set of behaviours. And why are the behaviours above that waterline? See, when you take a look at it, I'll just go back for a second. I'll talk about this for a second. An iceberg. Why do I use an iceberg to illustrate someone's identity, do you think? Because most of it's where? Underwater, it's submerged. About 10% of it is above the water, 90% below. Now, when you think of the Titanic, was it the ice above the water or the ice below the water that sank it? Below. The same is true for human beings. It's not what's on the surface that will sink you as a person. It's what's below the surface. Does that make sense? By the way, on that movie Titanic, was anyone other than me annoyed at going to see a movie where you knew the ending? It's like, it's going to sink. By the way, how many of you cried in that movie? I cried in that movie. When that woman threw that diamond off the back of that boat, I was bawling my eyes out. I mean, how the heck could you do that? So the identity iceberg, behaviours. Behaviours also can be rose-coloured glasses, because you ever notice that what behaviours of other people do you see? You see the ones that you want to see, don't you? How many of you can watch someone and see all of the good behaviours for them? What about, let's do this example. Two women walk into a bar, one's single, one's not. Do they see different men? Do they see different behaviours in these men? Absolutely. So folks, the biggest contributing factor to your behaviours is your set of what? In blue up there? Your skills. Everyone, it's your skills. See, your skill set determines your behaviours. How? Okay, let me give an example. Okay, hands up if you are a good cook. Who would classify themselves as a fairly good cook? Hands up high. Great. How about the not so good cooks, sometimes known as bad cooks? Okay, great. If you're a good cook, will you invite people over for dinner and cook dinner for them? Yes or no? Yeah, if you're a bad cook, would you do that? No. Why do you do it if you're a good cook? Because you're good at it, you enjoy it, you get good feedback, people tell you they like it, you feel good about yourself. But if you're a bad cook, what do? What do you make for dinner? Reservations? Or you have a barbecue and you invite someone over and they cook it for you. Okay? And this is what happens. We do things that we perceive ourselves to be good at. So, next one down on that rung. What is the biggest contributing factor in the identity iceberg to someone's set of skills? Everyone call it out for me. It's your beliefs. So your beliefs contribute to your skill set. How do they do that? Well, first of all, what is a belief? Feeling? It's something you hold to be true. Is it necessarily a fact? By the way, that brings up an important point. There is a distinct difference in life between fact and opinion. How many of you have made decisions in the past based on an opinion, assuming it was fact? How many of you have done that? You know, and it's such a huge error because you believe someone's opinion to be fact. Always remember, is what you're basing your decision on an opinion or a fact? It's vital to know the distinction between the two. So, a belief is something you hold to be true. It's not necessarily true, but it's something you believe to be true. How many of you have changed beliefs in the past because it was true, but then all of a sudden you realised it was different? Okay? This is what happens with beliefs. Well, let's look at a belief that we've already mentioned. How about the good at math belief? How many of you in the room believe you're good at math? Who's good at maths? Excellent. Who's the not so good at maths? Excellent. By the way, you notice my wording, not so good and good. Okay? There's no bad, there's no all of that sort of stuff. Let's say, for example, you believed you were good at math, you did a math test, and you came back a week later and they'd given you an F, a fail on the test. What would be your first thought? They got it wrong. There's no way I can get an F because I am good at maths. Now, let's say you were only 5 years old and you'd only decided after one test that you were good at math, and the next one you did, you got an F on. Your belief is very shaky, isn't it? But the second test, you get a fail. You say, well, maybe I'm not good at maths. And you start to reinforce the not good rather than the good. You see how easily a belief can take shape? But how many times do you reinforce that belief? That's the question. Because every time you add another experience that reinforces the belief, makes it harder and harder and harder to change. Is it easy, however, to change a belief? Yes or no? Absolutely. Because we're human beings, we have a thing called choice. Two ways to change a belief. Number one way to change a belief is a significant emotional event. Some sort of an event in your life that's significant. Like, how many of you know someone that believed in God for the entirety of their life, and then all of a sudden a family member got killed and all of a sudden they gave up their belief? Okay? This happens a lot. You know, how many of you know someone that believed they were in love and married and everything until they found out their partner was sleeping with someone else? It's a significant emotional event. It changes their belief structure immediately. So the biggest contributing factor then to someone's beliefs is their set of what? Everybody? Values. What is a value? See, if a belief's something you hold to be true, what is a value? Something you hold to be important. So you can't use something you hold to be valuable because you can't use the word in its own definition. Something you hold to be important. Now, it's a value. It's not a thing, by the way. See, people say to me, oh, my family is my value. No, no, no. Your family is a thing. They are humans. They can't be a value. What values do you describe that are family values? Well, you know, love, acceptance, and then you get the list. Does that make sense? But let's take one that I've already used as an example. Let's say your highest value in life was acceptance, that you wanted to be accepted by others. Would you have a slight struggle in the world of sales, yes or no? Absolutely. How come? You're never going to try and close the deal, are you? Why are you not going to try and close the deal? Because they might not accept you. So then at the bottom of all that, it's called the identity iceberg. So at the bottom of the iceberg, it is your, everybody call it out for me, your identity. Here are the two most important words. The words are I am. Write them down, big writing. I am. Why are those two words two most important words in the English language? Sets up a foundation, yes. Why else? Specific, maybe. Why are these the two most important words in the English language? When you put them together, what does it do? Controls how you think. It gives you your own definition of yourself. How you define yourself. If your words, let's just say you use the words, I am poor. What has that just changed when you look up this whole identity iceberg? Did it change a heck of a lot? Does it change your values, your beliefs? Will it change what skills you go after? It'll change your behaviours. What if instead you said, I am rich? What's your new identity? Rich. I had a friend of mine, his name was Richard, and he changed his name. He said, well, I'm not going to be called Rich anymore. I'm going to introduce myself as Rich. I am rich. And that's my name as well. So when you look at your identity, folks, what is the biggest shaping factor for your identity? Around the iceberg is water. Around the human being is there what? Everybody, come on. Environment. So what is your environment that sets up your identity? And how does your environment change your identity? Because what makes up your environment? Other people. How many of you, well, I'll give you an example from my own life. My dad's side of the family, I don't go to their family functions. because the environment is not one I choose to participate in. How many of you know environments like that in your life? Okay, it's kind of like you know that when you get into that environment, you will change your identity. Because it does. It shapes your identity, absolutely. And when it's not your environment to control, it makes it very hard for you. It's kind of like a smoky nightclub. Will it change your identity, yes or no? Absolutely. Changes your whole mind perception. So the people you hang out with, is that important to your environment, yes or no? Yeah. Does it change your identity, yes or no? Yeah. Jim Rohn once taught me, he said, you'll always earn within plus or minus 10% the same as the 3 people you hang out with the most. Plus or minus 10%. My wife, my daughter? No, he said 3 people you hang out with the most. So can you hang out with people by their books, by their tapes, by their videos and stuff like that, yes or no? Yeah. So, if you hang out with, Brian Tracy, Tom Hopkins, Brad Sugars, whoever we are on tape, it'll change your thinking pattern. Your environment is vital, folks. Now, this is where we come back to one of the first flip charts we did. A victim will allow their environment to change them. Does that make sense? Yes or no? Yeah. A victor will change the environment or remove themselves from the environment. Does that make sense as well? Okay, so for some of you, your environment is not conducive to you being rich. The environment you put yourself into is not conducive to you being wealthy. So you've got to make sure you take a look at your environment. So here we're going to do an activity. I want you to turn to a clean sheet of paper. In the center of that clean sheet of paper, I want you to put in big letters, I am. And then you're going to list at least 20 different things around it that is the identity that you believe you will need to have in order for you to achieve your goals. What are the things that you want? I am an exceptional salesperson. I am an amazing father. I am rich. I am a brilliant property investor. I am an amazingly cost-effective marketeer. I am. What are your I ams? I'll give you some think music for 2 minutes, and let's see if you can get 20 odd down in 2 minutes. How many of you realize you could keep writing stuff there forever? How many of you realize that? You could just keep putting stuff down forever. And that's why I like doing the dream charts with pictures, and you can put the words in amongst them and all that sort of stuff. How many of you also realize you already are most of those things? You've just got to take them to the next level. Do you all realize that? You already got most of that in you. You just need to go to that next stage. Okay. So let's just take a look at why do people stay where they are, just quickly. First one is, everybody? Come on, everybody? Fear. Fear in my book stands for false expectations appearing real. Now, when you're going through fear, does it feel real, yes or no? Absolutely. I remember about 5 years ago, I was in Auckland, and those from Auckland here will know that there's a building there in town at one of the hotels where you can do a thing called rap jumping, which is basically where you get a harness on and they tie the rope to the back of your harness and you run face first down the side of a building. Now, I was standing up on the top of this building. I think it's like 15, 16 stories. I can't remember exactly. But they have, on the top of the building, they have a ledge about 1 foot high and about probably ½ a foot wide that is the concrete edge of the building. And you're trying to step up onto this edge. And I stepped up at least 4 times and I kept falling back onto the building. And I turned around and said to the guy, would you loosen off the rope a bit so I can get up here? It's pulling me back. And he said, take a look at the rope. And it's like this, So it's all this stuff, but you're standing on that edge. And I was standing there, by the way, like this. He said, stand up straight. I said, I am. But at that point, the fear is racing through your head. And what 2 words create fear? What if? What if creates fear big time. How many of you read Susan Jeffers' book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway? You read that one? It's a great book. It's a real simple thing. Because what she actually teaches you is a simple statement. And I'll give it to you this way. How many of you have handled everything that has come up in your life so far? How do you know you've handled everything that's come up in your life so far, by the way? You're still alive. So if you've handled everything that's come up in your life to date, is it a pretty good idea that you'll handle everything that comes up in your life till you die? Yes or no? Yeah, so why worry about any of it? If you can handle everything, no need to do fear about anything. So it's an interesting point. But take a look at this for a second. Let's talk about definitions of self. I put up here 50,000 because there's a very, very prime example I want to give you. It's in fact two. I ran advertisements about 7 years ago, and I just wanted to do a test. And it was the same help wanted ad, exactly the same except for one thing. One of them said salary 50,000, the other said salary 250,000. To which one did I get more responses? 50,000. I got 10 times more responses to 50,000 than I got to 250,000. That staggered me, but it also gave me a great starting point to work from. Another example of that, I went into a sales organisation one time, and the sales manager said, Brad, would you mind actually spending some one-to-one time with this one lady? And I said, how come? He said, well, she used to be in administration, and 3 years ago we gave her a small territory. She built that territory right up. Then we promoted her and gave her a bigger territory. And she actually bomb dived in that bigger territory. Then we put her back into a smaller territory this year and she's built it back up again. So I sat down with this lady and I said, so tell me, how much have you made the last few years? She said, I make about 50,000 a year. I said, great, so how come you're not allowed to make more than that? She said, well, that's all my dad ever made. Took me 2 questions because I knew it. I mean, it was just so obvious to me after training so many salespeople that there was something going on in this woman's head that said can't earn more than, or can't achieve more than, or